especially when Maxlaw is currently 4-0 on that champion.
Not today, though.
All the excitement, and it is banned away. So, Jace and Braum on the side of Misfits, very targeted.
Very different bans from the first game as well. Of course, they had to ban Zach Elise Callista in game 1, did Misfits. That means NIP probably going to have to put the priority on those bottom lane picks as well. Caitlyn, Callista probably going to get taken away. Maxlaw does play the Elise, but I don't necessarily think it's the beneficial style for Misfits when it comes to just looking for that big setup.
Well, champion pool for Ignar not going to be as heavily targeted.
Right.
Thresh is available, Rakan is available. Do you expect to see one of those as a first pick? I mean, it's possible.
You could go the Thresh. There are so many picks still available, though. We have seen Ignar work well on those pick-focused champions. Now the Callista is available. We know Hans Sama does have a pretty decent set of plays on that. Now, I am completely wrong. I was saying that I thought the Elise wouldn't be a high priority, but Misfits changing up their jungle style. We did talk about this.
Well, Elise has been a near permaban here in the EU LCS. Huge amount of presence, but primarily on the ban side. 94 games banned to 28 picks. This will make it 29. On the other side, Callista available, as you've mentioned. Maokai still up as well, but instead it's going to be Callista and Alistar.
The Kalista bot lane taken here for NIP, and the reason you can just blind pick Alistar here is you don't really care what anybody else is picking in that bottom lane, because the rest of the tank supports that are still around without that Braum, the Callista Alistar does well enough. You know you're looking for team fight and skirmish setup, you're comboing the ultimates together. One of the reasons that now we have to see the Xayah, the Rakan locked in here is Misfits want to be able to try and punish this a little in the laning phase. Alistar, never the strongest laning support himself, so we now have to watch how this back and forth between the duo matchups goes.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Hans Sama's win-loss on this champion is not great. 5 games played, he's 1-4 on Xayah. However, we'll see what they can do. Of course, Ignar, definitely the playmaker. The tip of the spear is what I called him earlier in the week when it comes to leading the charge. Now the ninjas in pajamas, where do they go? Jungler, maybe, and then avoid having something target banned?
You can also go, as they are, to the mid lane here. You know, picking Syndra, this is just very common since the 10-ban strat. You pick this very strong mid laner and then ban away comfortable matchups. We might see the LeBlanc, the Orianas focused out here in the ban phase. There are a couple of specific counter matchups that got buffed. The Echo on 715 had a little bit of a buff come through. Haven't seen Power of Evil play that in competitive in a long time. But still one of those matchups you have to keep in your mind whenever you see a Syndra locked in.
Well, we'll see what they want to do. Misfits Gaming definitely got the makings of a pick-style comp, especially with Rakan Elise. The combination is really powerful, and that LeBlanc's banned away.
LeBlanc banned away, but you also have to look at NIP either to take or ban away the Renekton, because Elise, you always have to think about the Crocodile when the Spider's on one side as well. Very good comboing in the beginning of the game up in the top lane, so that's one thing that we might see NIP focus to steal away now, is Galio is the ban here. One of the matchups we saw Power of Evil play earlier on this week was the Galio for Misfits against G2. Not the best matchup.
Didn't help a whole lot, unfortunately.
No.
Misfits Gaming got pretty handily defeated by G2 Esports on Thursday this week. And the last ban in Phase 2 for Misfits Gaming is going to be that Gnar. So Prophet will take a couple of hits to his champion.
And both of these are matchups that you normally would run into a Renekton for different things. Of course, Gnar would normally be looking for side lane control later on. The Shen would be looking for cross-map plays, utilizing the Stand United. So still looking at that angle for Misfits. The Jarvan has been a big pick, but Kayn has been locked in. And now that is a flex, jungle or top. We don't see it too often in the lane, but we know it can be played. More likely the jungle here for Shook.
Right, early game jungler for an early game jungler player, dude. Shook, fantastic impact in the early game. We know Kayn has the ability to snowball.
Yeah.
And he's got lanes that can definitely do that. Syndra, Callista, Alistar. If you give those lanes an advantage, all of a sudden that becomes powerful. Yes, we have Kled locked in for Alfari and Misfits Gaming. That means we're going to get some bear traps on. A rope thrown out. coolest spell name in the entire game, and they need a mid laner to round it out. What do you think it's going to be?
At this point, Orianna's available, probably going to be the pick for Paravival. Now, this Kled, only the second time we're seeing it for Alphari, but it gives Misfits an ability to close the gap. You look at the amount of speed that Rakan is going to have with the quickness, with Kled on top of that as well, just getting to the fight. Pretty sure this is jungle for the Kayn. You don't really want to blind pick it up into a lane, so likely to see an adjustment away here. Now, Rumble can do quite well into Kled. Of course, in the laning phase, Kled kind of has to give a lot of room over to high damage traders like a Rumble.
You know what I like about this team composition, Stress? It is not League of Tanks right now.
Not at all.
Loads of squishy targets, loads of burst available, and that is potentially a good thing for NIP. If Kayn can get, well, any of his laners going, well, then he can just start Goomba stomping everybody.
Yes, if he can, if he's going as well for that Shadow Assassin style, he'll kill the squishies incredibly quickly. We have seen like full lethality out of the mid lane specifically. That was what Caps was running. Has to adapt a little bit in the jungle, of course, go warrior route into it. There's a lot of assassination potential on NIP. Between Kayn, the Syndra, you've got Alistar as a frontline, good team fighting for the rest of the NIP lineup, so it's a very diverse composition compared to what we normally had seen out of them. Misfits, on the other hand, scaling. Orianna, you've got a Xayah there. Kled can take over the side lane later on, but you do have early game presence. The Elise, always got to be careful. Elise, Kled, still quite dangerous in their own right.
Well, terrifying. That cocoon comes down. The amount of damage to follow up. Misfits Gaming need to shut down Kayn from the ninjas in Pyjamas. You can see the team comps on your screens. You guys know how to vote for who you think will be victorious. I just caught a glimpse there of Maxlaw rattling off instructions, talking with the team. Let's see how well he can read NIP and this Kayn early game.
Kayn did receive buffs on 7:15, specifically to the Shadow Assassin side and the more burst potential. The AD ratio on his ultimate got increased by a decent margin. Also applies on the base Kayn as well. So.
Do you think he's going to go for that range one? Looking at now the team compositions here, because traditionally from the jungle, it's the Darken upgrade that is the more standard.
I'm still expecting the Darken a little more. We'll obviously have to track this later on in the game. Kayn is such a new champion that we haven't got that wealth of games to see.
Yep.
The buff doesn't affect the Darken side of Kayn's kit. And I think you're right. We'll probably see the bruiser aspect where you can take a lot more damage in the fights. You can soak up damage in response, get your health back at the end of it. That's what I'm expecting out of Shook.
All right, well, let's keep our eyes on how it plays out. Flash cleanse for Nagne in that mid lane. Try to deal with some of that single target CC, roots, etc. I love seeing ignites, not exhausts on both of the supports. Definitely signifies their intentions and goals.
It does, but then Misfits may be a little caught out without an exhaust. If this Kayn is the assassin side of things, you want an exhaust against an assassin, but if you're anticipating the bruiser, cut through the heal with the ignite on the Rakan as well. Good for the lane too. If you can get those exchanges early on, maybe get the ignite down, stop some of the healing, get that kill pressure in lane. That's what I want to see out of Hans Sammer and Ignar, because they tried to do that in game 1.
So, Shook is the second best jungler in the league at getting first bloods this split, okay? He's on a champion that should be able to do the same. As Shook takes that shadow step at level 2 and starts clearing out his jungle. Now his opposition, Maxlaw, is also on an early game jungler in Elise. However, Maxlaw's not played this champion a whole lot this split. He's been banned a whole hell of a lot. And his last game, Maxlaw decided to camp. You know, he decided to farm, play a little bit of Farmville in the background, just CS forever and ever and ever. He actually had a ridiculous amount of CS throughout the course of the game. So which jungler do you give the advantage to?
I still give the advantage to Maxlaw overall. This Kayn, we haven't seen the massive amount of utility or damage that comes from it. You talked about Shadow Step, that'll give him that extra sustain through the jungle. I spoke to Max Light in between the games, and I was like, did you just want to farm to like 500 CS? And he said, no. At the beginning of the game, all I did was remember that the first jungler to get Gargoyle, Stoneplate, Knight's Vow, and Locket wins the game automatically. So I just wanted to get there first.
Sorry.
Not going to happen this game.
The first jungler to get Knight's Vow, Gargoyle, Stoneplate, and Locket.
Yeah,
so
wins.
Okay,
in
so
Max
the first
Law's
one to
opinion.
get 3 items.
That's it.
I want to actually like just quantify how much time Max Law spent in the jungle. We took a look at his jungle proximity, which is the amount of time a jungler spends near their laners, between 2 minutes and 15 minutes. And his was 22%. The average is around 44%. So less than half the average amount of time around his laners. But then he did Flame Horizon Shook by 22 minutes.
He did.
Hashtag worth, right?
And while this follow-up isn't relevant to this game, Amazing, the jungler for Mysterious Monkeys, has had games around 50% JP. That is a staggering difference of how low 22% of the time for Max Law is. This time, he's looking towards the top side, trying to find some of the camps, see where Shook has been on his jungle path. You'll not find any camps with the vision control enough, plus the lack of camps that should tell Misfits that Kane is likely on the bottom side. You can see pings came out, of course, this shadow step. They'll get a marker to say where he's coming out here, so they'll know he's there. Look at the top side health, though.
All right, Prophet's in trouble. Gets caught by Max Range Cocoon. Well, that was just too simple.
Yeah, that looked way too easy out of the Misfits top and jungle. Cocoon max range lands, easy kill. Alphari looked like he'd taken a beneficial trade earlier on, trying to punish Prophet. We talked about how this Rumble will lose the side lane presence to the Kled later on. Looks like Alphari taking the best of those trades. Not a matchup we see all that often,
no.
The Kled into Rumble, and it's going to be one that's a lot harder for Prophet the later this goes now, because the kill already going over, double longsword, didn't even opt for magic resist. He's just like, I'm just going to kill you even faster.
I really like the summary that you mentioned earlier, how Alphari wants to somewhat take over the side lane and then kind of come into flank, and Prophet, well, he wants to TP in and get those equalizers down. But I need to see the TPs. Prophet Shen in game number 1, not enabled by his team, so I don't want to put it all on him. Right? You need your laners to set up plays to stand united into. And that's what I want to see from NIP between game 1 and now game 2.
Right, we've seen the struggles of Shen happen to even teams like Fnatic at Rift Rivals, really struggled with not having the platform to build from. The Rumble for Prophet almost feels like NIP are going a little further back in time to the initial weeks here, where it was like, get him on a carry, try and carry. We spoke heavily in game 1 about how NIP had seemed to leave that play style over the last few weeks. And I think trying to round out multiple play styles will benefit NIP in the end of all things, but as we talked about, I don't think they're expecting to crush Misfits in any of these matchups. So trying to play with this Kane jungle on stage, get some experience, maybe add Zaban to the promotion tournament teams.
Well, it definitely makes you think twice. Shook this time round is doing his best Max Law impression. He's already got plus 20 CS at 6 minutes.
He's taken the Krugs multiple. This was the key to Levi's farming. Jungling. His farming was take all the Krugs, take all the Raptors, and it looks like you're heavily out farming your opponent when in fact you're actually 16 gold ahead.
Well, even Stevens doesn't have the most valuable of jungle camps. Shook was waiting in this top lane bush and cancels his recall, so that's going to be a few seconds delayed. Prophet's trying to play the bait here because it's level 6 to level 5.
It's actually Alphari that's playing this as more of a bait. He's playing just forward enough in the lane to give the impression. But look at the wards all the way through both sides of the NIP jungle. No camps available leaves very little room for Shook to actually be playing on the map. And Alphari knows one of those places is in the bush in his lane. That's why he doesn't go forward in the lane, doesn't go too aggressive, but just enough to tease Shook to stick around and look for a gank.
Well, nothing manages to come from it. Misfits still first blood already secured with that, well, just really well executed dive in the top lane. Very well set up by Alphari. And Max Law's lingering down in this bottom lane here. Ignat goes in with that entrance, gets a knock up onto Sprockle. He's rooted out as well. And that's just a great amount of damage.
Yeah, that ability to jump into the fight, dash back out, put out a lot of damage, is why the Xayah Rakan lane is seen so commonly. Very strong in the laning phase and picking and choosing fights. Now, Maxlow was actually backing away from that situation, and NIP didn't quite have the read on it. They were afraid that Elise was coming in, and it was an all-in. Of course, remember, Ignite's in this lane for both supports, so I think NIP didn't go aggressive because they didn't know exactly where Maxlow was.
No, not yet. Level 6 hit for Hans Summer. Ignite gets the entrance onto Sprotle. Ignite not used yet. Summoner Heal has, however, traded some ultimates in the mid lane. Unleash power in that shockwave. Just chunking one of the down, but no real advantage.
Yeah, neither used their summoners there. We looked at the heal being used in the bottom side. That engage was almost immediately after Shook showed on his red buff on those wards we mentioned that Maxlow had placed on his trip through the jungle earlier. So really good read on where this Kayn could be. One of the strengths of Kayn that people have perceived and seen in solo queue is... Oh, hang on.
Oh, that's a flash engage. Ignite goes for the entrance and dashes out to Hans Summer. So flash for Sprotle, but for no trade, and very importantly, the ultimate.
Yeah, the ult is now gone. Sprattle thought that they could punish Ignat for trying to stop the recalls. Well, Sprattle was the one that got punished last week for doing that, and this was nowhere near the same amount of punishment that comes through. So Sprattle will be hurting without that. I wanted to touch on the jungle pathing of Kayn, because using that shadow step allows him to get into lanes very easily, very quickly. But if you track him through the jungle with those wards all the time, you can see exactly where he's coming from, and there's no more threat of that.
It makes me think about when you play against an Evelynn, how you want to ward the camps because you can't see the champion. That was a narrative that we used to talk about all the time when she was meta.
Corki, Triforce, Sword Boot, Spike, Double Tier, Calm.
Exactly. It's all those magic buzzwords, you know.
Reminiscent.
But look, we're getting to 10 minutes here. Misfits pretty comfortably in the lead. Even lanes pretty much across the board, and Shook hasn't necessarily been able to have an impact yet. But it looks like Ninjas and Pyjamas maybe going to set up around this dragon, at least get the Scuttle Crab. Shook continues to farm up that passive of his. Look at the minimap though, Sprotle about to be surrounded here from the duo of Misfits.
I'm a little sad we don't have like a counter in-game for the spectator to see exactly when Kayn transforms. But he's had very little combat with champions at this point in the game. So obviously slightly delayed on exactly what we would expect out of a Kayn.
Actually, I don't think he's done any damage to champion. I'm going to ask our stats team to check.
Okay.
And we'll see, because I'm pretty confident it's going to be 0.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I don't think
one
at any
call. Confirmed from our stats team.
They're good. They're quick.
I was going to ask, how much damage has Maxlow dealt? If you were to guess, even though he has an assist, how much do you think?
It's probably really low because Cocoon doesn't actually provide a damage.
It is in fact 0. Yeah, he only got the Cocoon and then got the assist. So neither jungler has dealt damage to their opposing team just yet.
Pick Elise and 0 damage, but still have an assist.
There we go, dude.
That's the
what it's about. Early game junglers, 10 minutes in. No early game plays, you do the math.
It's a gentleman's agreement at this point. Completely hands off. Maxlow says, okay, if I don't put damage down, it doesn't count, right? And just sets up Alfari for that first kill. So we haven't really revisited some of these matchups early on. Nagne, of course, on the Syndra into Orianna should have the early advantage, but it's quite even for now. Power of Evil has got to the point where he can start pushing back Nagne's attempts to push in the lane. Very common matchup that we see. Nagne is going to be more about picking people using the Scout of the Week. Power of Evil will be about getting the team fight plays with Shockwave, but Misfits have pushed out the bottom lane with Hansam and Ignar so much that they can now take the Mountain Drake for themselves. Very comfortable, easy take.
Yeah, really well played here, Misfits. Safe and secured. They got themselves 3 Mountain Drakes in the previous game, and I know you were talking about the mid lane matchup and how PoE and Nagne were facing off against each other, but Power of Evil, second game, Orianna in the series. All year, he's 12 wins and 3 losses on this champion, and he has only lost to G2 and UOL on Orianna. Everybody else he's managed to take down. I mean, look at the stats. Plus 10% damage rating means, in comparison to every other Orianna, he's dealing on average 10% more damage. Gets the Shockwave down, continues to trade back and forth. Unleashed Power comes out. No summoners
Still,
yet.
both mid laners reading the trades very well. Everything pretty much connecting. I like that you talk about the damage rating there, Trevor, because we had a long discussion about the Nash's Tooth that came out and how that would affect the build and the damage. I spoke to Power of Evil in between as well, and didn't get it from the horse's mouth, I guess the former unicorn's mouth. The Nash's Tooth in a tank meta, he builds because he thinks he's never going to get to the backline. If you can't get to the backline, you're only doing damage from afar with the autos. So he says he just uses it to try and get any damage that he can down onto tanks. But there's not many tanks in this game, so he might not go Nash's Tooth.
Well, Mercury trades to start, the makings of the Morellonomicon as well. Nagne has already completed his Morellonomicon. And Prophet's going to look for Alfari.
There's going to be damage.
All right, let's take a look. Shook, the first jungler to deal damage. Gets down the Darkened Scythe and continues to trade back and forth, but Skarl has not popped. Shook wants to fire that Umbral Trespass. Hasn't done so just yet. Maxlaw's the target. He repels up. Sparkle Unbreakable Will buy some time. Fate's Call comes out. Alfari's the first one to fall. Now Maxlaw's in trouble. Rend comes down and he's crushed under the boot of EQ.
NIP make the play onto top side. Misfits hadn't committed to the defense fully because they knew they were getting bot lane tower. Hansama hadn't recalled. That meant Misfits were a little underpowered in the top side. Alfari and Maxlaw both fall. They trade it for tower first blood on the bottom side, and now NIP will look to push the top tower in response.
Okay, 2 kills in trade for tower first blood, and Hansama gonna back away once he gets to the inner turret. With Hiku securing the outer top, that was a very good play from NIP, and at least close this gold gap slightly.
And there were a few other factors at play in that as well. As I looked at the minimap during that engage, Ignar looked to be trying to help Power of Evil. He wasn't on his way topside, and for the first time in the EU LCS, I believe Rust... Oh no, second time.
Second time.
Because Pridestalker had it once and did almost nothing with it because it was right as they lost the game.
He did debut it, and we were waiting
to
see the upgrade. And now we need to see 2 assists. Got himself that scimitar, and here's a replay of how all the kills happened.
So this is how it started off the engage onto Alfari. If we look at the map state here, Ignar, the reason he wasn't topside is because he was still pushing in that bottom lane, runs towards the mid to try and help out Power of Evil. But look, now the engage comes through on the top side. Maxlawr dodges out as much as he can using the repel, as did the invulnerability out of Alfari, those few frames where you're hopping off Skarl. And then NIP are able to close that out. You can see only now is Ignar even closing in. But remember, Misfits still got tower first blood from that.
Yep, blue buff actually resets, by the way. Alfari throws down the charge. Maxlaw's running in. That'll get the flash out of Nagne. Shook's on the back end, but unfortunate for Nagne, he wasn't able to pick up the blue buff. So that should be stolen away by Maxlawr, it looks like. Yes, donated, in fact, to Power of Evil. And Misfits, they maintain their gold lead. The top tower did not fall.
Or Shook.
And Shook's not going to be able to find Ignar.
Looks like Shook's building lethality as well. There was another adjustment as we take a look into the Unicorn Den in the bottom left of your screen. Another adjustment on Rust and Kayn in general. It was actually a bug fix that the proc from Duskblade wasn't correctly working with Umbral Trespassers. So as you came out, you weren't quite doing the intended damage. So maybe we'll see that lethality build from Shook come through, and he'll start bursting people down even as the Bruiser form. Of course, normally better against tanks, but still very good at surviving through fights, outputting damage, getting the health back.
When you look at the damage on Misfits, I mean, maybe outside of Orianna, there's not a lot of traditional bursts. Yes, of course, Maxlaw's Elise will have the ability to throw down that Q burst damage, but maybe Shook will be able to sustain through extended fights. We'll keep an eye on him. 0-0-2. It's always exciting when one of the new champions is flirted with in the meta, and we need to see how effective it is, because Power of Evil seems to be the target.
Yeah, he was looking to get over the wall, but you can see Power of Evil still playing quite defensively. He's got people collapsing almost on all sides, so that Equalizer is available as well. NIP looking to dive the Orianna.
All right, Equalizer comes down. Shook looking for the Umbral Trespass.
Ooh.
Actually, may not even need it. Good shockwave onto 2. Power of Evil finally gets roasted down. Teleport being channeled by Alfari.
Ignar's
and
here.
In the backline, Ignar with the quickness has got a bunch. The Umbral Trespass will buy some time as Ignar gets chunked out. Look at the back end now. Hansama used the Feather Storm already. Alfari's looking to catch the Bear Trap on a rope. Hiku's the target. He is tagged. He's pulled backwards, but there's no follow-up damage. Hiku's using pressuring that Martial Cadence, continues to hop away to safety, puts down the spears for the Ren. Hikyu stays alive, and NIP win the fight.
That was a very messy fight. A lot did not hit out of NIP. There's a couple of key moments in this fight, but they still come out ahead. They get Power of Evil, they kill Hansama. Alfari was too low to continue dealing damage. And Misfits has run out of damage. I want to look at the setup here. The Equalizer was used because Power of Evil, he's boxing himself in behind the tower, so forces the flash early on. Shook doesn't land the knockup from Rust. The Q didn't actually form for Nagne as he used the Scatter the Weak, but NIP still able to pull the kill off very quickly. In goes Ignar into the fight, trying to get Shook as fast as they can, but you mentioned it. Umbral Trespass into the flash was able to buy a little more time, drag the rest of Misfits into the fight, and Hansame here has already used his flash, uses his heal right as he dies from the Ren, and Hikyu's jumping back in the fight, always saved, is able to kite back with the rest of NIP, and they come out with the team fight win.
2-1, a bunch of summoner spells blown. And small correction, I called it Martial Cadence as a passive. It's Martial Poise. Yeah, I said I was like, there's something fishy there, so I went to check, and yeah, Poise is the right word. Anyways, Ninjas in Pyjamas got the kill lead. They're still down in gold though. 2,000 there or thereabouts. But what we're seeing from this team comp is when NIP group up, it is a pretty scary combination. Look, Equalizer into everything else.
Whoa.
Max Law is going to chunk down Nagne. Here comes Shook, got that ulti available to him if he needs it. Power of Evil and Ignal. Going to flash in for that engage, or dash in for that engage. And that's an easy double kill for Misfits Gaming.
Yeah, while Rust is very good at taking prolonged fights, 1 versus 3 isn't fair at that point. He is not going to survive that. Maybe if it was only 2 people, he would have tried to take the fight using Umbral Trespass, but Rust relies on high health targets. You've got to deal that % max health damage that comes through, get all of your health back at the end of it. And again, it's another performance on Kayn in the jungle here in EU that isn't quite living up to the hype of the Darkin himself.
No, definitely not quite as good as what I've seen out of some of the NA Kayn junglers. Regardless, Misfits Gaming getting to 20 minutes. They got themselves that Mountain Drake earlier. They've got a healthy lead. And even though Ninjas in Pyjamas are much more proactive this game, it feels like it's still falling a little short. You know, they're playing from a deficit again. They need to catch up, and they've got this team composition that, yes, it can do well as the game plays out, but I just felt like I wanted to see more from a Syndra or Callisto, a Kayn in those examples.
Yeah, it feels like you want to see more action, successful early. Now that I think is the key, is NIP, they've had some success, but it's not really what you want to see of dominance coming from this. The Syndra isn't fed. Now 2 kills on Callista is nice, but behind heavily in farm, Hansama has been able to push the lane, get the towers, and actually compound the lead that way, rather than just getting kills in skirmishes.
And of course, for Misfits Gaming, if they close this out, they secure that 3rd and final playoff spot. We know 5 of the 6 teams, and the expectation was always that Misfits would be the 6th team, but this will be the win that confirms it. And as it stands, Misfits Gaming putting some pressure in this top quadrant of the jungle. Where is Max Law? Try to see what the Cocoon bot was.
Dragon.
Yeah, on that dragon, on the Cloud Dragon. Yeah, I mean...
Hey, he did probably more damage than Shook did on that last fight when he blew Shook up.
Yeah. Definitely the case. All right, Dragon number 2 picked up.
Got that Cloud Drake on top of the mountain already. So Misfits is setting themselves up pretty well. Remember, we said scaling is the name of the game for them. They can take these skirmishes early on. They've got damage. The Elise can start picks, but when you've got an Orianna, when you've got a Xayah, there's a lot of insurance in the late game there for you. A lot of ability to scale and say, okay, well, we'll just take the later fights.
So what you're saying is not only do Misfits have a lead, they also have a team comp that's going to do better as the game plays on, and setting themselves up for a 2-0. Ninjas in Pyjamas, though, will not go quietly, as Misfits' Power of Evil is now under pressure. He's going to get burst down. Shockwave will not complete the animation, as he gets killed already. Alfari continues to push the bottom lane. He's on that inner turret. And end up trading 1 for 1, but obviously additional kill to NIP.
Yeah, that's Shockwave not completing. Kind of a property of the fact that Power of Evil's flash was seconds away from being available. On that engage, and NIP, good timing there, knowing they can get into the lane, and actually countered with a Rift Herald play now, as NIP had started a Baron. Remember, we saw NIP try this against G2 and be successful, but Misfits want to fight.
All right, Sprattle's already used that ulti. Hans Summers, Featherstorm's available, but the Baron with Rend and Smite easily picked up by Ninjas in Pyjamas. That's a fantastic equalizer. Ninjas in Pyjamas have just taken the Baron, and they've just taken themselves some kills. That might be all they need to regain control.
Decisive shot calling out of NIP once again. This is the second time in as many weeks that NIP have done this. They've said, okay, this is the window for us. Get the Baron, rush it down. We have this objective. And Misfits, they had started to commit into an inner tower play with the Rift Herald because they didn't realize the Baron had actually been started. They had a pink ward here and they were trying to get closer, trying to at least get the tower with the Rift Herald at the same time. But NIP were doing this way too quickly. And as Misfits come towards the fight, the equalizer does a lot of damage on the way out. Misfits trying to kite back up the ramp, trying desperately to get away. The Baron has already been taken, and NIP say, okay, no need to chase this further. We have 5 members with Baron, empowered recall, get out of there, and we will get towers instead.
Yeah, gigantic game reset. Ninjas in Pyjamas. The goal difference doesn't mean anything with the Baron buff stats. And important, that equalizer from Prophet just did so much to keep Misfits Gaming on the back foot. And of course, we've talked a lot about what is at stake here for Misfits Gaming. We know the Ninjas in Pyjamas are locked into that promotion tournament, and it's going to be a dive on the bottom lane. Typical, I start telling a story as Alfari's about to get ganked. Scarl will pop, and they're just going to carry on chasing him down. Back to the bottom of your screen, Mysterious Monkeys and Ninjas in Pyjamas, they will play off against Giants and or Team RB and Shulker. That's a matchup that'll happen tomorrow. Those will be the 4 teams that enter. Only 2 teams will rejoin the EU LCS.
Only 2 can make it through, but now you have to ask, will Kane make it through the ban phase in any subsequent NIP games? It hasn't been a demolishing play out of Shook so far, but it's looked good enough. I mean, at this point, maybe some of these openings are more available against the likes of a challenger team. Now, Giants, Schalke, and Team RB have looked very strong themselves, but looking at NIP's progress the last few weeks, they're looking upon another level than we've seen in most of the regular split.
I mean, last week, Giants just destroyed Wall.
Oh, it was not even close.
And it was one of the biggest stomps I have seen. All right, Shook comes through the wall, looking to get some damage onto Misfits Gaming. Whoa, Prophet fires the equalizer. Let's see whether or not that comes to hurt them. Charge thrown down. Remember, no equalizer. Shook is the target. He's popped already. A flash over the wall. Ignore finds the charm. Now all of a sudden, Ninjas in Pyjamas are retreating. Fate's Call saves Sprattle's life. Alfari continues to move forward. Where's the cocoon bot match for? Shockwave is flashed away from Nagne with the good reflexes. And Misfits Gaming defend the Baron empowered siege.
Yeah, Misfits able to push back NIP. You can see when the charge is available, they can easily get to the fight. But after that, they do have a little difficulty chasing people down without using summoners. So for Misfits, that's something where these prolonged fights, until they can get out of combat and Cloud Drake kicks back in, it's going to be difficult for them to actually chase NIP. But still, coming out ahead, up against the Baron, 20 seconds left after that. We're into a replay looking at what Sprattle was looking for at the beginning of this. It was Shook coming through with that shadow step. Of course, looking for the knock-up off the Empowered Blade's reach, but didn't quite find it. A lot used out of NIP with that equalizer going down. Trying to cut Misfits away. Alfari comes in through the side. Charge finds Shook. No real way out. And Igna, we know on these aggressive champions like Rakan, he just always wants to go in, and he looks very good when he's playing this aggressive style.
And the thing is, it's not even just that he wants to do it. He makes it look good and makes it look easy. Just the fluidity of Ignar's Rakan. Regardless of all of that, Ninjas in Pyjamas eventually take the tower down. They even out the gold. They even out the towers. NIP are only behind Dragons at this point in time.
And what they've done a good job of is when they had the Baron buff, look at the vision control all the way through Misfits jungle here. The wards in favor of NIP. We've got to keep our eyes on Shook because Misfits were closing in on him as well. Alfari trying to push on the top side. NIP, they've just killed Hans Sama.
Did not even see how Hans was caught out. He had no flash available to him.
Sprattle looks like he just found the angle on him. Maybe using this topside jungle vision control. If we end up getting a replay, if there's even time, maybe we'll get that answer.
Misfits Gaming at risk of losing their inhibitor turret here. Where is the defense? Alfari still pushing in the top lane, and Prophet's trying to shut him down. NIP, they got the Baron. NIP are going to get the first inhibitor here. And there's no defense, there's no stopping them yet.
And that's the difficulty is Misfits, they have to rely on Alfari for the charge to get towards the fight. And he's coming in from the backside now. NIP have decent fighting in these split up numbers. Prophet, he's about to show in the bottom lane. He's gonna force TP if they end up using the charge here out of Alfari. But look, Misfits don't commit to it. Hansama's still in the base.
All right, Hansama alive and now trying to rejoin his team. The gold lead that Misfits Gaming had accrued, the confident Game 2 victory that was somewhat expected of a quarter-finalist team playing against the number 10 team in the league is simply not happening. All credit to Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah.
They played a risky Baron call and made it work. And now they've got super minions in the middle lane as well.
And I think the difficult thing about this game is both teams can deny fights for quite a while. You look at the likes of a Syndra from long range. Yes, you can use it as pick, but you can also use it as fight denial. Yeah, it was Sprattle coming through the top side. This was the jungle vision control we were talking about. Hansama comes out of the ultimate right into Sprattle's Q. Nothing really else that
just
Hansama
made it
can
look
do.
easy.
Yep, walks through topside.
I mean, Sprattle last week when NIP beat Roccat was playing Alistar. And if anybody watched that series, Sprattle had this fantastic move in the laning phase where he just walked up to Roccat and said, "Here, you may kill me."
The cannon.
But
Oh, Witted.
later in the game, he actually had some really sick headbutt pulverized combos. One particular one where he was in the dragon pit and he hopped over the wall and he managed to catch out Roccat and pop them back into the pit. Did the same thing now, just finding the right angle. 107. Sprattle on Alistar having a great impact. All right, 2v2 now. Alfari still got his passive Scarl. Knockup comes down from Shook. Repel goes up, Maxlaw comes down, and the support from Misfits Gaming making their way, but they've backed out.
Hang on, the pings from NIP onto the Baron. It is about to spawn. They've got the Kalista for the Ren. This is where they can rush it down. It's only really Ignar that can make it there, but look, no vision on the way to the Baron. The second time in a row, NIP have good setup on the Baron. They know they can take it. 5,000 health. Misfits can still force a fight.
They can. Maxlaw's going to be the last one to join, though. There's a bajillion Ren stats available. Baron is secured by Ninjas in Pyjamas. Sprattle finds the headbutt. Featherstorm comes out for Hansama, and Sprattle is the target. Baron for one dead yet. Now on the back end, Alfari's running for his life. Shook has been able to get one. Got himself a double. Running forward. Looks for Ignar. Sinks the scythe in. Ignar's the target after Hansama is down. That's a triple for Shook.
Second time in one game, NIP with a good read on the Baron with 4 people still dead, plus the Baron buff, plus the minions. Shook, he's trying to shadow slash his way forward to try and end this game.
The Ninjas in Pyjamas are looking for their 5th game victory of the split, and they've taken down the Nexus turret. Alfari left alone, nothing to do. The Ninjas in Pyjamas upset Misfits and force a deciding game 3.
Very strong game out of NIP when you look at shot calling, even trying to rush it down. Shook reaping, slashing his way through towards the base. Like, we can end this, we can win this game right now and take a 5th game win in the summer split. NIP, it wasn't all about protecting Hiku this game, a little bit more unorthodox, but NIP making it count for themselves.
2 red side victories today.
Blue side OP.
I may have, apparently. But it's almost like the teams swapped problems. This time around, Misfits felt less proactive. Maxlaw's Elise, yes, he had that great first blood in the tower dive, but then didn't see many gank opportunities afterwards. And NIP's bold Baron calls, well, that's what set them up for the game victory.
And Misfits were running a little bit trickier composition to make work for themselves, trying to run with the Kled to make the engages happen. We talked about Maxlaw and how he couldn't quite find the cocoons after that. I think that's part of the problem, but from there, little bit of a desync between Ignar, Power of Evil at times. I saw in the Baron fight, there was a flash in from Ignar. As he exits, the shockwave comes through. So just didn't seem on the same page like they were in game one.
Absolutely not. An unforgivable mistake from Hans Sama getting caught out as well. That allowed Ninjas in Pyjamas to bounce it back with a shocking victory. Let's hear from our analyst, Oni DeFicio, on game 2.
Thank you, Quickshot. I'm joined by DeFicio, if you didn't notice, once again for this analyst segment. Hi, DeFicio. Welcome. Now, really quick, you said last time, Shook, be selfish. Sit and hide in the jungle and farm. What did Shook do this game? He sat in the jungle and farmed in the early game.
Yes, always be selfish in life. Always think about yourself first. That's what the junglers have shown us today, because this game, it was Maxlow who tried to gank for his team, and he wasn't actually that successful at it. The Kayn, though, I want to talk very briefly about it before we get into all the, awesome NIP stuff. I didn't like Kayn at all in this draft. I'm like, I think Kayn jungle is really good against like these tank comps where you go Rast, who's really good against tanks and team fights, and you get your Black Cleaver, you can kind of shred the tanks in the late game. There wasn't really that many big tanks for him to shred on the side.
I mean, Kled had a lot of health, but he definitely was not a tank.
That was about it, And then I'm like, ooh, okay, so I'm kind of concerned that in the early game, he's also just going to sacrifice his lanes a little bit by being super greedy and just farming for himself. And then Elise can take over the game. But none of that actually happened other than a top lane gank.
And I have to say, as we move forward in this game, what we saw was such proactive playmaking. And it wasn't from Shook. Right? Shook had a few moments where he did set a few things up once he turned into Ross, but all of the playmaking, you just have to say the individual laners of NIP stepped up so much in this game.
Yeah, so much. And then combined with these individual laners, Sprattle on this Alistar was beautiful to watch in this game here. This was the one champion he was kind of famous for, before, and if we go back a year or two, the fact that he actually found so many openings in this game set up almost every advantage NIP actually got. It was just him starting it. No proper defensive vision from Misfits. Sprattle finds the way towards the mid lane probably 5 times in this game. And some of the times gave them Baron.
It definitely was. Let's take a look at the first Baron coming in for NIP.
How does it start again?
I think is there a pick? Is there a certain player that might have been involved in starting?
Wait,
look at that!
It's Sprattle finding his way into the mid lane. This was the second time he did this, where he kills Power of Evil, and now we're far enough into the game that NIP can actually do something more with it, not just get a kill. They got mid lane tower, they start the Baron with the Kalista, and now it's a 4v5 where Misfits need to turn. And luckily for NIP, they didn't waste any cooldowns on the first kill, so they still have a lot of big ultis ready for this fight. They like, let's say, Prophet's Rumble ulti.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Kalista Alistar is just such a strong combo. The amount of disruption Alistar can put out, once that ult falls off, you pull him back in, you throw him out again, his combo is back up again, and the way that the bottom lane played it was so well. And the thing that I like from NIP that we saw last week and we're seeing now again here is how well they utilized the Kalista to force Barons even on the smallest advantage.
I think actually we've seen the biggest strength of NIP the last 2 weeks is how quickly they can actually call for the correct Baron plays. We saw it against G2 where they rushed the Baron. G2 were not expecting it. Boom, Baron gone. And that was NIP being behind like a few thousand golds, if I remember correctly. This game here as well, really good Baron calls. When they know there's a small advantage and they have, again, this Kalista or the Cho'Gath, they are actually really clean. I just want to get to the next replay.
Yeah, because this is exactly what happens in the next replay. As they once again make an aggressive Baron call. This one, however, also starts a bit of a fumble for Misfits. You see this fight going on. Fight's not important. Look at the mini-map right now. Look at where Misfits are going.
I really dislike that Misfits are all calling rush bot lane and fight. Instead of it being just a 2v2 where the junglers are not near the Baron so that no one can rush Baron, it ends up being 5 Misfits members going to the bottom lane. NIP turn around, rush the Baron, use the Kalista again, and then get another fight where Sprattle engages well, and Shook this time around, who's actually strong at this point, gets on to Maxlow, and obviously at this point the Rast
Okay, I didn't see that, but he actually uses the Umbral Trespass. Max Lord goes, oh, this is nice. Lets him get over the wall. He taxis on the back of the Elise just to kill the Orianna.
That's what you can do, man. That's the one thing. That's the key.
It's hard for me not to get into the Kayn hype watching that, though. Admittedly, I don't think Shook did anything to build this lead in the game, but you can definitely say that the Rost did help them close it out.
Yes, it was definitely good in team fights. I think Nagne and Sprattle in the early game were the 2 heroes. Nagne did super well in the mid lane on this Syndra, not only getting kills for himself, but also actually setting up kills with Sprattle. And then just the fact that so many times did the Alistar find his way to the mid lane where there was no wards on the left side of the mid lane from either Power Vivo. Hansama was in there as well, where you can blame Hansama and say, oh, why are you getting caught in the mid lane? You're costing your team a lot here. But if you have no vision and you can't even sit like at your previous tier 1 tower, like where it used to be, well, if an Alistar shows up behind you, most of the time you could also blame him and saying, where is the wards? Why is there no defensive wards that actually allows me to spot this Alistar?
I mean, do you think that's going to be the big change for Misfits? Is just more defensive vision, or do they just take the Alistar away?
They take the Alistar away. Like you gotta respect a performance like this. And Alistar, you know, they can play it. Ignar can play it 100%. It's his kind of champion, right? You can even ban it if you're on blue side. Specifically, if it gets open again, which it might, I mean, there's a chance NIP can get it, but they won't like first pick the Alistar. So if Misfits are on red side, they can just grab the Alistar in the first rotation, and that should also be fine, because it's not like NIP's bottom lane is gonna dumpster Hansama and Ignar, even if the NIP bot lane gets a good match.
But the thing that we said at the end of the last segment was that we thought that the laners might just outclass and
The
roll
solo
over the
laners,
top.
yeah.
So we really didn't see that, I feel like, this game. I felt like Nagne on Syndra looked really solid. I feel like Prophet on the Rumble in the top lane also looking much better. So if Misfits pick, once again, solid lane matchups, not conceding anything like a Shen and Tanar, I think that NIP have a much bigger shot than we initially gave them credit for in this series.
Honestly, going into game 3, after a win like this, it's hard to call Misfits the heavy favorites right now. I'm not saying NIP will be the favorites to take down this Misfits lineup, but I think it's looking actually really good for them. And if they once again get Spraddle on one of these supports where he can actually roam and make plays, and he finds these openings on the map against Misfits where there is no vision, going mid lane once again, where there's some CC setup from Nagne, proved very useful.
Yeah, they wanted to force fights in game 1. They found a way in game 2 for sure. Well, Ninjas and Pyjamas are on the verge of pulling off a huge upset. We'll be back for the final fight in 3.5.